on an unusually cold Friday evening. The Crystal Room restaurant buzzed with quiet conversations, clinking glasses, and the soft melody of a grand piano drifting through the air. Every table was occupied by New York's elite, politicians, celebrities, and business executives. Yet when Ethan Mercer stepped through the entrance, the entire room seemed to pause. At 46, Ethan had become one of America's youngest self-made billionaires. His face had appeared on magazine covers, financial news channels, and business journals around the world. People admired his success, but very few knew the loneliness hidden behind his expensive suits and confident smile. He wasn't there for dinner. He was there to finalize the biggest business acquisition of his career. As the hostess guided him toward a private table near the window, Ethan barely glanced around the room. His mind was buried in contracts, negotiations, and numbers worth billions of dollars. Then he heard a familiar voice. "Good evening, sir. May I take your order?" It was only 7 words. 7 ordinary words. But they stopped time. Slowly, Ethan lifted his eyes. The tray slipped from the waitress's trembling hands. Crystal glasses shattered across the marble floor. The entire restaurant fell silent. Standing only a few feet away was the woman he had buried in his heart 10 years ago. Sophia, the woman everyone believed had disappeared forever. She looked older now. Life had etched quiet pain into her face, yet her gentle eyes were unmistakable. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Sophia looked directly into his eyes and whispered just 3 words. "You should leave." Ethan felt his heartbeat pounding against his chest. After searching for her for 10 years, after hiring private investigators, after mourning a woman he believed he had lost forever, why would the love of his life tell him to walk away? And more importantly, what had she been hiding all these years? 10 years earlier, Ethan Mercer wasn't the billionaire the world admired today. He was simply an ambitious young entrepreneur with a small technology startup, a cramped office above an old printing shop in downtown Manhattan, and a dream far bigger than his bank account. Back then, success wasn't guaranteed. There were days he skipped meals just to pay his employees. There were nights he slept on the office couch because he couldn't afford the subway ride home. But despite every setback, Ethan refused to quit. He believed that one breakthrough could change his life forever. Sophia entered his life on one of those difficult afternoons. She wasn't looking for a wealthy businessman. In fact, there was nothing wealthy about Ethan at all. She worked as a volunteer at a neighborhood community center, helping struggling families and serving free lunches to anyone who needed one. While everyone else saw a tired young man in wrinkled clothes, Sophia noticed something different. She saw determination. One afternoon, after watching Ethan quietly count the few dollars left in his wallet before walking away from the lunch line, Sophia stopped him. "You forgot your meal," she said with a warm smile. Ethan smiled awkwardly and shook his head. "No, I just can't afford to pay today." Without saying another word, Sophia placed the meal in his hands. "Then today, it's on me." Neither of them knew it then, but that simple act of kindness would become the beginning of a love story that seemed destined to last forever. For the first time in years, Ethan felt that someone believed in him, not because of what he owned, but because of who he was. And from that moment on, he promised himself one thing. If he ever became successful, Sophia would never have to struggle again. Little did he know, keeping that promise would become the greatest challenge of his life. Over the next 2 years, Ethan and Sophia became inseparable. While investors questioned Ethan's vision and banks rejected his loan applications, Sophia never doubted him for a second. Every evening, after finishing her shift at the community center, she would stop by his tiny office, carrying 2 cups of coffee and enough encouragement to keep his dreams alive. Whenever Ethan grew discouraged, Sophia reminded him why he had started. "You don't have to become the richest man in America," she would often tell him. "Just become the kindest." Those words stayed with him. Eventually, Ethan's company caught the attention of a major investor. What began as a small startup suddenly exploded into one of the fastest growing technology companies in the country. Within 3 years, Ethan's name was appearing on business magazines, television interviews, and Forbes lists. Life changed almost overnight. The small apartment they once shared became a luxurious penthouse overlooking Manhattan. The old sedan Ethan had struggled to keep running was replaced by a fleet of luxury cars. Invitations to exclusive galas and charity events arrived almost every week. Yet despite all the wealth surrounding them, Sophia remained exactly the same. She still volunteered at the community center. She still greeted the doorman by name. She still believed that people mattered more than money. One evening, standing on the balcony as the city lights sparkled below them, Ethan slipped a diamond ring onto her finger. With tears in her eyes, Sophia whispered, "I'd have married you even if all you ever owned was that tiny office." 6 months later, they were married in a quiet lakeside ceremony attended only by close friends and family. To the outside world, they looked like the perfect couple. The billionaire who had found true love before fame. The woman who loved him long before the fortune. But as Ethan's empire continued to grow, something else was quietly growing in the shadows. Someone had begun watching them, and that person was patiently waiting for the perfect moment to destroy everything they had built together.
Success arrived faster than either of them had imagined. Within 5 years, Mercer Technologies had become one of the fastest-growing companies in America. Ethan was no longer fighting to keep the lights on. He was signing billion-dollar contracts, speaking at international conferences, and shaking hands with some of the most influential people in the world. But with every new opportunity came another sacrifice. The late nights became normal. Business trips stretched from days into weeks. Phone calls replaced conversations. Even when Ethan was home, his mind was somewhere else, buried beneath meetings, deadlines, and responsibilities. Sophia never complained. She understood the pressure he carried. She knew he wasn't chasing money anymore. He was trying to protect the company they had built together from nothing. Still, there were evenings when she prepared dinner, only to receive a brief text message. "I'm sorry. Another meeting. Don't wait up." She would quietly place the food back into the refrigerator and eat alone. As the months passed, the distance between them became impossible to ignore. One night, while Ethan attended a prestigious charity gala, Sophia stood alone on the balcony of their penthouse, staring across the glittering skyline. She wasn't angry. She wasn't jealous. She simply missed the man who used to dream beside her in a tiny office, with peeling paint and broken furniture. The wealth had changed their lifestyle, but it had also changed the rhythm of their marriage. What Ethan didn't know was that someone inside his own company had been paying very close attention to every crack forming in their relationship. That person understood something Ethan never did. A lonely heart is much easier to manipulate than a happy one. And before long, the first move would be made.
One rainy Tuesday morning, Sophia decided to surprise Ethan with lunch. It had been almost 3 weeks since they had shared a meal together, and she missed him more than she was willing to admit. Carrying a small basket of homemade food, she smiled at the receptionist before taking the executive elevator to Ethan's office. She had done it dozens of times before, but today, something felt different. The executive floor was unusually quiet. No assistants, no secretaries, no laughter from the conference rooms. Only silence. As Sophia walked toward Ethan's office, she noticed the boardroom door wasn't completely closed. Voices drifted into the hallway. She wasn't trying to listen, but then she heard Ethan's name. She froze. "He still doesn't know?" Another voice replied, "Good. Keep it that way." Sophia frowned. Who were they talking about? Curiosity slowly replaced caution. She stepped a little closer. The voices became clearer. "If Mercer signs those papers next month, everything becomes ours." A second man laughed quietly. "And if someone gets in the way?" There was a long silence. Then a calm voice answered, "We'll deal with them." Sophia's heartbeat quickened. She couldn't see who was speaking. Only silhouettes reflected against the boardroom glass. Suddenly, one of the men said something that made her blood run cold. "I hope his wife never finds out." Sophia instinctively covered her mouth. Before she could move, a coffee cup slipped from her trembling hands. It shattered against the marble floor. The voices inside stopped immediately. Complete silence. Then, a chair slowly scraped across the floor. Someone was coming toward the door.
Sophia took a slow breath before opening her handbag. For years, she had carried the same envelope everywhere she went. The paper inside had become worn with age. She handed it to Ethan without saying a word. His hands trembled as he unfolded the letter. It wasn't a goodbye born from betrayal. It was a sacrifice. 10 years earlier, Sophia had discovered that Ethan's closest business partner, Victor Langford, had been secretly stealing millions from the company. Before she could warn Ethan, Victor found out. He threatened her. "If you tell Ethan, both of you will lose everything." Sophia was pregnant. Victor knew. He made her choose. Protect Ethan, or destroy the man she loved. So she disappeared. Ethan finished reading. Every word shattered another piece of the story he had believed for 10 years. But the letter wasn't the worst thing inside the envelope. There was one photograph Ethan wasn't prepared to see. The secret that changed everything. The photograph slipped onto the table. It showed Sophia standing outside a small clinic, her hand resting gently on her stomach. The date froze Ethan. It was taken only days after she disappeared. "You were pregnant." Sophia nodded. "I wanted you to know. But Victor made sure you never would." Before Ethan could speak, a young girl stepped quietly into the hallway. She looked between the two strangers. Then her bright blue eyes met Ethan's. For a moment, no one spoke. Sophia whispered, "Her name is Emma." Ethan didn't need another explanation. He saw himself in her eyes. But someone else had been watching the reunion from the moment it began.
A calm voice echoed through the restaurant. I wondered how long it would take. Victor Langford walked toward them without fear. His expensive suit looked untouched by time. He smiled as though he had already won. He placed a thick, confidential folder on the table. "Everything you lost started because you trusted the wrong people." Inside were financial records, bank transfers, signed agreements, proof that Victor had built his fortune by stealing Ethan's company years ago. For the first time, Victor realized Ethan wasn't interested in revenge. He wanted the truth. Then one document fell onto the floor, and Victor's confident smile disappeared. The document was an original contract. Victor's forged signature didn't match. His own evidence exposed him. The attorneys studying the paperwork immediately understood what it meant. Years of lies collapsed in seconds. Victor looked around the room. No one defended him. His own allies quietly stepped away. Sophia reached for Ethan's hand, not because the battle was over, but because neither of them wanted to lose another 10 years. Yet Ethan had one final decision that surprised everyone. As the sun slowly disappeared beyond the lake, Ethan watched Emma run ahead, laughing without a care in the world. For years, he had measured success by numbers, buildings, and bank accounts. But standing beside Sophia, he finally understood what truly mattered. Some losses aren't meant to break us. Sometimes, they're meant to lead us back to what we value most. Ethan spent 10 years searching for answers, only to discover that the greatest thing he had ever lost was waiting for him all along. And now I want to ask you something. If you were Ethan, would you have forgiven Sophia after discovering the truth? Let me know your answer in the comments below. And if you enjoy powerful stories about love, betrayal, second chances, and life-changing twists, don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next story, because the next one might be even more unbelievable than this.